Welcome to MSP Unplugged, episode number 22, Business Balance. I'm your host, Jeff Halash. This is our live show where we discuss different ways to run your IT business, whether it's managed services, consulting, break fix, or anything in between. Let me introduce my co-host. We have Eric Vazquez from Chicago Park District. Eric, how you doing?
Good, Jeff. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for showing up on a Sunday evening. We really appreciate it. So before we get started, what we normally do is obviously everybody knows that Paco's not here. He's actually celebrating a couple of family birthdays today. So happy birthday to his mother and brother. And I hope they're having a fun time and have a piece of cake for me. So anyways,
and a beer for me.
There you go. And hopefully he will be back next week. But anyways, so what we're going to do is we're going to share a tip or story that we could learn from. And Eric, I'm just going to throw this out to you since you are my only co-host this week. Do you have anything that you'd like to share for the audience to learn from or have a takeaway from?
Sure. I definitely have a story for you and your listeners. It is a definite what not to do. So about 5 years ago, I had finally gotten my own office, which for me was a big achievement. I had been in cubicles or shared offices for quite a number of years. I'd like to decorate my office and just feel really comfortable. But there's such a thing as being too comfortable. And I had sort of taken the habit of drinking Gatorade at my desk, particularly, in the same realm of all my electronics. You might see where this story is going. um, and I don't remember what I was looking at on my screen, but I was so enthralled either by what I was watching or what I was reading that lo and behold, I did sort of knock the Gatorade bottle just clean across the keyboard. And all that actually went through my mind was that song from Outkast, which the lyric goes, "Shake it like a Polaroid picture." So I took the laptop and I just started shaking up all the Gatorade, making sure like it didn't have a chance to actually seep into the keyboard. And I had done that for maybe 10 or 15 seconds until most of the liquid was off. I came back with a dry paper towel. It wasn't that sticky. I looked around. It was still early morning and not too many people were around. And thankfully, the computer survived. I was as surprised as anybody. I can tell you that much because I thought for sure that either the shaking or the Gatorade was going to, render that machine useless. But it went on to survive me and many more years of me and is hopefully being used by someone much more deserving right now.
That is a great story. And that's probably a great lesson for our clients is to let them know, hey, if you do spill liquid, because it does happen, you really should take those computers and go ahead and try to shake the liquid out as quickly as possible. Because what ends up happening is if you look at a keyboard layout on a laptop or something like that, now some of the higher end laptops will have a membrane that will actually capture the liquid. It won't let it go down in. But some of the older type laptops, they basically they're pretty compacted. So it takes a while for the liquid to actually get all the way down inside of the computer a lot of times. And so if you can get a lot of that liquid out like you just did, that is probably going to save the computer. What a lot of people do is they will shut it off. They leave the computer sitting there. And what they'll generally do is they'll let it dry and they'll try to come back later and turn it back on. And 9 times out of 10, they hose the computer. So it's pretty much done. So actually that's an excellent tip because you did the right thing. That's actually what people should be doing. So we're gonna put that in a book and we're gonna share that with everybody.
You could thank the musical group Outkast for their contribution to the technology industry.
That's awesome. That is a great story. All right, my tip for this week is I actually there's another new program that came out, believe it or not. Nick Shaw over at D7X Tech. He has a default programs manager. And if you prefer to use certain programs over Microsoft's default settings, like a picture viewer or web browser, then you probably run into the issue of having your preferred program default reset to Microsoft Windows defaults. And
Mhm.
that is very irritating. Default Programs Manager is a small program that provides two options: save your current program default settings and restore your saved program default settings. What this means is you can set all your program defaults the way you want them, i.e., Adobe Reader for PDF files, Google Chrome for web browsing, etc. Save the configuration, and later, should Microsoft ever reset your program defaults, restore the config.
Oh, nice.
That is a pretty cool tool. Now, here's the thing: we know Windows 7 is dead when this is only supporting Windows 8, 8.1, and 10. So really, it supports
Oh.
10. Because I don't know anybody that's using Windows 8 or 8.1 anymore. Maybe there are some people, but probably not. But anyways, that is a great program. And here's the thing about this program: it is 100% free.
Oh,
So go over to d7xtech.com and you can check that out today. We'll also put a link in the show notes so you can check that out. Great little program, along with the one we brought last week, I think was called Tweaky. And that's a paid for program, but well worth it if you're setting up computers one after another and you need the same settings, and makes life a little bit easier. So, anyways, check that out, d7xtech.com.
sure will.
All right. So today we're going to talk about this came up in the secret Facebook group for MSP Unplugged, and that is finding the family, work, full-time job, IT business balance. But what we're basically going to talk about today is we're going to talk about business balance, or even in general, life balance. And in the past, we've talked about things like work-life balance. And the reality is, depending on what season of life you're in at this point, work life balance is not actually a really attainable thing. And we'll explain a little bit more of what I mean by that. But there are some things that you can do to set yourself up for success and not put as much pressure on you. Now, this is not a what we're going to talk about is you have to find the way that you work. And what I
Mm.
mean by that is figure out what things really ring your bell, make you want to get up in the morning, do your job, take care of your family, all these different types of things. Everybody's going to have different trigger points that are going to motivate them to do certain things. So some of the things I'm going to talk about, you got to be careful because it's going to sound like I'm going to talk about being lazy, and I'm not. But I am going to talk about taking care of yourself mentally and physically. Because without those two things, both mentally and physically, you're just going to be in a world of hurt. And the only reason I'm going to tell you this is because what you got away with in your 20s and 30s, you're not getting away with in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. It just does not work the same. I'm here to tell you. And I'm in the middle of that group, just so there's no smart aleck comments out there. Um, but anyways, in some of the people that are in this group know exactly what I'm talking about. And so, what I want to do before we get started with that, because this is going to be hopefully an interesting topic that we can talk about, and I'm ready to pick Eric's brain and see what he thinks about it. But before that, let's get a little bit of background on Eric. Where did you come from, and how did you get to what you're doing today?
Sure. So I actually uh, wasn't born in Chicago. I was born in South Carolina on a military base. My father is a retired Marine, and was always very technical, both him and my mother. But if you had told me growing up that I would be in the field that I am now, I wouldn't have believed it. I wanted to be a sports reporter, actually. That's what I went to undergrad for. It's communication slash journalism. I had various internships that I wrote the sports column for, and it was something I was very interested in. But sort of along the way, I became a tinkerer, always building things with my father, always had a general interest for learning. I and wasn't really actually big into the whole uh, school thing, the traditional school setting, if you will. So the advent of the internet really uh, was right for me for the way I like to learn, which is hands on, which is do it yourself, which is watch videos, which is get your hands dirty, and that encompasses everything from writing a piece of software to installing a switch to building my first computer. So, just with that general interest and knowledge and that curiosity, a lot of my knowledge is sort of gleaned from firsthand experience. I don't have a degree in engineering, electronics, computer science, but what I do have is a passion for learning and applied learning. And I just sort of build those skills over time. And one of them, I was in the private sector for quite a while, and I fell into sort of the product development area because of the the way I like to build things, both hardware and software. And I had always felt that I wanted to do something for the city of Chicago. It was where I was raised. Um, my uncles are firemen. I have various family members in the military, but I never really quite found a place for where my skill set could be applicable. But then about 3.5 years ago, I got a text message from a good friend of mine who asked me if I was interested in interviewing for a role at the Office of City Clerk in Chicago. And the role was Chief Technology Officer. And he knew me well, so he knew that I would say yes, and I did. Um, and it was one of those sort of, I didn't know who the clerk was prior to that. She didn't know me. But through relationships that I had built, various people vouched for my passion for helping people, my passion for learning. And that's how I started to move into the public sector. And I was in the office of the city clerk for 3 years and accomplished a lot of what I set out to accomplish, which was um, I believe in freedom of information, and as much as that's about technology, it's also about government. There's a Freedom of Information Act of which uh, people can request information from their government and get details otherwise they might not be privy to. So that is very much something that I believe in both realms. And once I sort of set out a course that I felt comfortable with in giving people information, access to information, even if it didn't have anything to do with the city clerk's office. I would sort of uh, meet the challenges, take them head on. And the final one was I had this idea about taxes, particularly the taxes that were administered by the city clerk's office. And our tax was sort of unique in that it wasn't something you pay and you get a receipt for, like a water bill or an electric bill. You actually got a physical emblem for what they call generically the wheel tax, but it is a sticker that goes in the bottom right hand corner on the windshield of your car. And it essentially is a tax on the vehicle for the wear and tear that your vehicle, uh, you know, has on the streets of Chicago. But and there are some other ones, some permit parking, right? You get another emblem that allows you to park in dense areas. Otherwise, you wouldn't be allowed to park there. That parking is reserved for the people who live there, and it's usually focused on dense areas of the city of Chicago, like Lincoln Park Zoo, Wrigley Field, Soldier Field, areas like that. And I started to think, what if people got more value for this tax dollar? They're getting something, so there is an exchange They provide money, whether it's cash, check, card, and we give them something of value, something that they have that they can do something with if they didn't have it. And I started to treat taxes more like a product. So there are certain product characteristics that just make better products. You sort of build for someone who has a better alternative. And I know, there is sort of the only alternative to paying a tax is not paying the tax. But I have indirect competition, which I view as sort of non-compliance or um, apathy, right? And all that has a general effect on the 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 taxes coming in. Because if I don't pay a tax, then my neighbor doesn't pay a tax, and then it sort of builds up, and that puts more stress on the system, more stress on the other taxpayers. So I thought, if I'm going to uh, increase the tax, which is not happening, but if I were to increase the tax, what additional value am I giving to the taxpayer for their tax dollars? And do they know where the tax dollar is going? A lot of people don't know where their tax money goes, and sort of plays into the point of just access to information. I can tell you, if you pay your city sticker or vehicle sticker, you pay your parking permit, those monies go to, uh, you know, uh, you know, street sweeping, fixing the roads, painting the roads. Um, so just overall maintenance for roads. And a lot of people don't know that, right? A lot of people don't know when they show up out of the state that, it's like the welcome to Chicago tax. Yeah, you can get a ticket, right? You sort of, if you're a graduate or you're someone moving in for a job and you're coming to the big city, you find an apartment and you got your first paycheck and you're proud and you're feeling good. And then next thing you know, you get a ticket for not having a city sticker. That seems patently unfair. So I've made it my mission and duty to uh, provide more information for people like that.
That is very cool because, yeah, if people can actually research the information via the internet, through the government services, then they can use that information to better prepare themselves for when they're coming to a new city or they're willing to do something and figure out all the ins and outs of what they need to know. Because a
Hmm.
lot of times, you're right, you're coming in blind. You really don't know what's going to go on in a particular. How does a certain city do business a certain way? And so
Correct.
that's excellent. So now you work for the city clerk, but then we were talking before the show, and you just moved on to a newer position
Hmm.
recently. Can you tell us what that is?
Sure. It's the Deputy Director of Information Technology at the Chicago Park District. So it's uh, the level of opportunities I get to tackle in the Park District is the scale has been sort of widened, if that's even a term. But Chicago Park District is more than just play lots and baseball fields. It's the city of Chicago harbor. It's golf courses. It's actually track and field, a new track and field facility at the south side of Chicago. It is a family entertainment center in the west side of Chicago. It's nature walks and exhibits near the forest preserves and other parts of the city. So it's a lot more than what I thought it was before I joined the organization.
Now, there's a lot that goes into that because obviously, in anything we do, especially at the city level, state level, and all that, the more things, the more information you have out there for all this stuff. Obviously, still using computers today, and there's a lot of information that's moved around that way.
Mhm.
So the importance of having somebody that can do technology in these realms is got to be super important today. And plus, to keep all that stuff on track, keep it all organized, and keep moving forward in the future with new things that are coming to us.
No, exactly. And I can tell you this, uh, nothing brings me greater joy than providing general public Wi-Fi access to communities and areas that don't have the infrastructure. The Park District buildings serve as internet connections for many of the areas in Chicago that just don't have those types of resources. The children and can go to schools, but outside of school, maybe they don't have internet at home. They can go to a library, but what happens on a Sunday when the library is closed? So I think it's all these organizations working together to provide access to information, because I truly believe that it is a public utility. um, I think the city of Chicago can do better, is working to do better to sort of close that digital divide for those areas that just don't have the access that they should.
That's very excellent. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that things like that are going on, providing things to the public that needs access to what should be a fundamental service. So
Sure.
that's good. All right, so let's kind of move on. It's a great background and origin story, and appreciate you being here. One of the things that we were talking about is finding that business life type balance.
Hmm.
And when you think about your business or your life balance, there's a couple things that you need to figure out. And that is, how do you organize yourself to get to a point where you're getting the things done that you need done without overwhelming yourself on a regular, continual basis? And what I mean by that is, a lot of people will, you can run 100 miles an hour, 7 days a week,
Hmm.
365 days a year. And in a few years, you will be an utter mess if you're even still around.
Right.
Um, So, with that being said, there's a lot of things I think that you can do to tailor your lifestyle and how you do things in order to get things done efficiently, but without sacrificing your life. And so, in the past, like we said before, a lot of people will talk about work life balance. And the problem with work life balance is we think we can get to an end that will be perfect in every way, and that is just not a reality. I'm going to tell you this: the time when it becomes perfect is when you're 6 feet under. That's the time it will be, you'll be complete, it will be done, and you'll be under the ground. So that's kind of the way that goes. But here's the thing: you can set yourself up to where you are constantly, and human nature is, we want to set goals, we want to constantly move forward. So there's going to be some goals and stuff that you're going to set over time that you might never achieve. And as a matter of fact, there's probably going to be things that you're going to set up and think that you want to achieve,
Hmm.
and you're going to not achieve those things. And that's okay. What you need to learn is this is an ongoing thing that you're going to constantly change. It's an ongoing target that you're going to constantly move to get from point A to point B to point C and all the way to that 6 feet under. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be morbid. I'm just saying there's something about you trying to obtain something without driving yourself nuts. So, anyways, with that being said, Eric, what are your thoughts on business balance, life balance in general?
I'm very much a fan of the hard stop. I'll do a hard stop at a meeting. I will do a hard stop with my kids, right? And I think because family is very important to me. I was only child growing up. I didn't have any brothers and sisters. I have two kids now, and I have many cousins and family and friends. So I do make an effort to balance. Right, I am a Libra. So for those of you not familiar, the actual sign is the scales, and it is very true to my personality. I don't mind. Um, you know, you know, doing 12-hour days, 7 days a week. But you better believe maybe in that second week, I'm going to take my kids out of school. We're going to get ice cream for lunch, and we're going to go to the movies when they open up back up again, and just on a regular day. And it just actually happened. So um, the Avengers Endgame movie, I had been watching the whole series of movies. So had my children. From they started out as very young, and as the movies came out, they got older, and that movie came out, I believe, the end of April on a Friday, and I booked tickets in advance, and we went on Friday morning. I took them out of school, and we just spent the day together because I knew that my commitment to them was as strong as my commitment to work. Their commitment to school was just as strong as my commitment, to everything else in my life. So I knew that they deserved a day off because I see how hard they work. So I tried to set that example, and I use that going to the movies as just sort of an overall example of how I approach my life. I firmly believe, whether or not this is true or not, I firmly believe that my employer shouldn't be thinking they pay me to work a specific number of hours in a day, in a week, in a year. They should be thinking about they're paying me for the value that I bring. Now, whether I can do something in an hour that takes most people 10 hours, they're not paying me for that hour. They're paying me for the years it took me to learn how to do something in an hour. So now, granted, that doesn't fly with every employer, but there's been some employers where we just haven't seen eye to eye, and I, I know the value that I bring because I also appreciate learning from my team members and my bosses. So I'm very comfortable learning, uh, but that also makes me comfortable to sort of draw the line and say, you know what, I'm going to take the foot off the gas pedal here, and I'm going to enjoy life, whatever form that is, whether it's going skateboarding with the kids, going to the movies with my wife, or going by myself for some ice cream. I'm going to make time because, if it's, I know there's work hard, play hard, but there's also be lazy hard, right? I know how to be lazy really hard.
That's awesome. I love that because it's such a different concept from the way most people think. Because I think, and let's face it, when you're in your 20s and you get started with this whole thing, this thing called life, because really that's when before that, mom and dad are pretty much taking care of you, and
Sure.
you don't have as many bills, and even when you first get started, everything's kind of a little bit simpler
Mm-hmm.
until you actually start to make money and you move forward and you buy things like homes and stuff like that. And you've got maintenance and all this other stuff that can really take your time. And you've got to be able to split all that stuff out. And if you're
Right.
just constantly working, you're just constantly going to wear yourself out, and you're going to be unhealthy, and you're not going to be able to sustain. But I think in the beginning, in our 20s, we think we're going to take on the world.
Mm-hmm.
Man, by the time I'm 30, I'm going to be retired and sitting at home drinking Mai Tais, iced teas, coffee, whatever. And that's just not a real reality for most people. Now, let's face it, there are some people out there that, hey, they're in the right place at the right time with the right piece of software or something that puts them in a position where that might be true. But what you also see, a lot of those entrepreneurs that have done that at a young age, they don't really stop.
No,
They
they
keep
don't.
on going. They have an
Mm-hmm.
excellent lifestyle, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
them, I'm sure, but they don't stop. They're on to the next idea. They're on to how do I make this better? And this is what life should be all about. It should be about improving things over time, but not setting something so hard that you feel disappointed when you don't get there. Hey, my goal by the end of the month is to sell or to have, 5 new customers or even one new customer, depending on what your business model is. And so when you look at those things, when you don't achieve that, a lot of people will get disappointed and step back and go, oh, I'm not good at this. This is not, maybe I should go do something else. And the reality is things take time. And you've heard me we've talked about things like Google AdWords in the past, and I've talked to you all about priming the pump. And most people fail at Google AdWords because they don't let it go long enough. They get in and they get out and they're like going, well, it didn't work. Well, yeah, it's not going to work immediately. There's a setup process, there's a priming of the pump, and there's a way to, you got to get that water to come out of the spigot. And once it starts coming, man, you can keep pumping and you can fill as many buckets of water as you want. For a lot of you, that's an old farm terminology. You look it up on the internet. Anyways, so, people used to have to do things like that. Not me. This was generations before me, but actually probably one generation.
One generation.
Yeah. not as many as I'd like to think. Anyways, so when you're thinking about that, there's a couple things that I think number one, I think you need to take your time and you need to schedule. And Eric, I love what you're saying with having a hard stop, because here's something we don't do. We go, this is the way I used to be when I was younger. When I would move, and I kid you not, I am not kidding you, it could be an apartment. It started off as smaller homes, apartments. And even my first few homes, me and my wife literally would have the house set up 100% in 24 hours. Kid you not. 24 hours. We get in. There was not a box that was unpacked. We moved into a house. Everything was put away. Beds were made. Everything was put together. Everything was ready to go and livable in 24 hours. Man, I'd be lucky to get the last box unpacked 16 years later now. The 24 hours, it just ain't happening. But it was my mindset of, I want to get, in my mind back then, I always thought if I get the job done, then I can relax. Well, there's some truth to that, but not really, because then there's going to be the next thing. There's always the next thing. So, and there's always going to be the next thing. I'm gonna tell everybody right now, I don't really believe in retirement. I know a lot of people, you're gonna probably, oh yeah, I'm gonna retire. And at the plant I work in, actually at the company I work for, Ford Motor Company, they basically, when most people retire, the average lifespan is 18 months. And I believe that doesn't have a whole lot to do with the health of the person or anything like that. Sometimes that is a factor, but a lot of times it is a mental thing where you cannot just be going, and then stop and do absolutely nothing for the rest of your life. That's just not a reality. So you need to look at life in a way that, hey, I'm going to do things until I'm 6 feet in the ground, and then I'm going to stop doing things. But you need to figure out what you're going to do in the meantime to keep that going. And there's going to be a lot of adjustments along the way. But one of the first places I would start personally, and this took me many, 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 many years to figure out, is that for me, the way I mentally work, if I don't schedule something on my calendar, it doesn't exist. Because I can make a to-do list, and we'll talk about, I'm not against to-do lists, but to-do lists are for a totally different thing than what most people use them for. A list that you check off is just, in my opinion, 9 times out of 10 is not going to work. It just isn't. We get overwhelmed and we stop adding things to the list, or we add too many things to the list, and it just, anyways. But if you can start by segmenting your day. Now, I've had people look at my calendar. On my calendar, I actually have things like sleep. I go to bed at a certain time, depending on what my schedule is during that period of time. And I set I don't have to get up at a certain time, but I kind of set a parameter for where I want to get up. So again, it's not a hard thing where I go, I got to be up at this time and I got to get, going on the day. And that's all fine if you're, in the military and you're having to, take out the bad guys on a regular basis. But the reality is, for most of us, you can still get a lot done in a short amount of period of time if you're laser focused for that period of time. And you're not having to, run around checking your to-do list and figuring out what you got to do next. So that's the first place I would start, is with the calendar. Get your stuff on the calendar to the nth degree for whatever's going to work for you. I mean, for different people, you might put eating on there, maybe lunch, maybe dinner. I don't personally. I pretty much eat segmented throughout the day. So, I mean, I eat at certain times. So it's kind of a habit. So I don't really feel the need to put that on there. But if you need to, you can segment every hour of your day while you're awake and even while you're sleeping so that you can make sure that you're doing the things that you want to do. Now, Eric, what do you have to say how do you set yourself up in order to make sure that your schedules get done?
Well, I think there was sort of pre-COVID-19 scheduling and post-COVID-19, or maybe we're still in it. I don't know, but um, I definitely I had certain markers, right? I had children and I have a dog. So, uh, particularly with those, they sort of begin that day with one or both sets of, of those people, or end the day with one or both sets of the people, right? Um, so that's what I noticed almost immediately, and I've had a dog pretty much, my entire life. So there's only been, since I've been, 12, there's only been 5 months where I've not had a dog, and I'm over 40 now. So those have sort of been general markers of my responsibility. I have a responsibility for a living thing, aside from myself. So I have to get up. Um, I don't have to stay up. I can go back to sleep, but I got to wake up to do something. I can always go back to sleep. Um, so having a purpose, or many purposes, I think, plays into that. What do I want to do? I mean, my schedule, my weekly Monday through Friday schedule, is definitely different than my Saturday to Sunday schedule. And even if you look at Monday to Friday, I actually firmly believe, and I reject them if I can. I don't like setting meetings between the lunch hour. Right? I know some people eat at 11, some people eat at 1, but if I schedule a meeting, I don't set it for noon. I also don't schedule meetings unless absolutely necessary before 10, and I don't schedule meetings unless absolutely necessary after 4. I just don't think people are at their best. People need time to ramp up, wind down. I want people at their peak, right? So that's late morning, early afternoon. So that's something that I firmly believe in. But as I think you alluded to, it depends on what one wants to get accomplished. This past winter, so January, February, and March, I had the most going on in my life that I had ever had going on before. I had this sort of job, married kids, but I also was in school in a data science program. I was also volunteering on a political campaign, and squeezing sort of exercise in there as well, and that by far was the most I had ever done in 3 months. Um, but each thing had its purpose. There, it's why I wanted to get up in the morning. It's why I wanted to stay up late in the evening. Um, and I think if you're passionate about something, it stops being work. You can, it sort of blurs the line. Now that may be beneficial to your employer for some, for some obvious reasons, but that's why, I think once you find something that you're passionate about and you can do that for a living, you're definitely winning in life, because it ceases to become about um, sort of the drudgery of work and the 9 to 5. I'm just looking forward to the weekend. You stay up. It's why you stay up late. It's that passion, that curiosity, the sort of that when it's 2 a.m. and you still haven't got the answer, it's why you stay up.
And I think that's one of the things that we need to talk about too is that there are going to be seasons of your life where you're going to be hitting it hard, and that's okay. as long as there's some sort of end in sight. And I know Cristobal, actually, we'll put it up here. He said he was going hard for the last month, only having 2 days off. So he said he did a hard stop like Eric and just took 4 days away with my family. So that's a perfect scenario right there of what can be done is you can actually take that time and go, okay, we're going to run hard for this period of time, but at the end of this period, we're going on a mini vacation. And it could be a weekend, it could be a day. It doesn't really matter. It's not the importance of how much or how little. It's just the importance of setting something up and taking the time to do that regardless. And it's very, very important that you do, because obviously if things like your family and stuff get left by the wayside, eventually they cease to be around you. So that's never a good scenario either. And you've got to have that balance. I know in my life, I've always wanted to go 100 miles an hour. And my wife will tell me when I put something down and I stop doing one thing, I will pick 4 other things up to fill my time. It's a disease. I know it. I have a problem. She tells me, and she's right. And so I seriously had to step back and think a little bit. I turned 50 this year, and I thought I was starting to understand some things when I got to 40. As a matter of fact, I tell my kids all the time, I said, listen, I'm just going to be honest with you. You're absolutely 100% dumb until you turn 40. And that's just the way it is. And of course, they come as they get older and in their 20s and 30s, they all of a sudden get to the point where they're like, well, if you were older, you'd say it was, 50 or 60 or whatever. No, I've stayed with that. You just kind of get some clarity by the time you get 40 for most people. Now, there's a few people out there that, they figure some things out in their earlier years. I was not one of them. I was dumb and I did some stupid things, and, probably potentially could have ended my life several times by accident just for being stupid. So, and that was in my 30s. So there you go.
There's degrees of stupidity, right? So I'm sure you were less stupid at 30 than you were at 20.
Yes, that's true.
Right?
I did learn some things. So, but even now, even in my 50s, now I'm getting to the point where I really have to sit back and think and go, okay, how do I need to set my schedule up? How do I need to make sure that I got time with the family? How do I need to make sure that I'm not overwhelmed by the decisions I've made of the things that I need to get done? So, seasons of life, you can have those seasons. You can go hard, take a break, go hard again, take a break. What you don't want to do is you don't want to constantly be going hard. So, if you're going hard to get to a goal, that's fine. And once you achieve that goal, yes, there's probably going to be something else that's going to come up down the road, but you need to take a little bit of time and go, okay, now we've gotten to that plateau. Let me go ahead and go with this and work into the new thing that I've just created. And then you can take that time, and then it's a little more on autopilot, so to speak. So
Sure.
it takes your mind, and it gives you that time to rejuvenate your mind and your body and all that stuff. And Eric, one of the things you alluded to was exercise. So I started this a couple years ago. I was always big into working out, and I did a lot of good things. There's a couple things that I do, and I'm going to encourage people out there. It's not always fun, and I'm just going to tell you that it's not always fun to eat right. It's just not.
No, it's not.
It's boring. It sucks. But here at the end of the day, there's things that you can do to eat right that will make you feel better, give you more energy, and make you be able to go harder for longer, which is a good thing. And the other thing too is sleep. Now, there's a lot of people out there. I'm going to tell you right now, you're not getting the amount of sleep you think you're getting. So a lot of people will look at their sleep and they'll go, well, I sleep from 9 o'clock at night to 5 o'clock in the morning, so therefore I'm getting 8 hours. No, you're not. I'm just telling you, no, you're not. You're getting but it's usually about an hour for an 8 hour period of time. It's usually about an hour less than what you think. So you're getting about 7 hours. And depending on your lifestyle and all that, the quality of the sleep could be different. Now, I'm not saying that 7 hours is bad, because actually, if I could get 7 hours right now, I'd be a happy camper. Right now, I'm at about the 6 to 6.5 hour level, just because of my work schedule. And again, I know it's a temporary thing, and eventually that'll come back around, where I will get 7+ hours of sleep a night and be better for it. So that's two things you got to worry about, is not worry about, but learn about a little bit, is eating and sleeping. And then exercise. What I've done is I actually bought a band system. It's basically these big rubber bands. Now, these are heavier bands than what you normally would buy at a lot of these stores. I think the biggest band doubled over. I think it's 250 pounds, something like that. So, anyways, but there's like 8 exercises that I do. I do 4 one day, 4 the next day. I do it 6 days a week. It literally takes me 10 minutes. I feel better. I feel stronger. It does some things internally that kind of get your body going, and help with the longevity of not only getting things done, but not being as sore after you get them done. Therefore, you'll take less drugs. Not that I'm into taking drugs, but when you're over 50, a leave is your friend. So anyways, but yeah, so there's some things that you can do there that I think is important. And then you talked a little bit about exercise, Eric. What types of things do you do to make sure that you get that exercise in on a semi-regular basis, if not a regular basis?
It took me a long time to figure out what I like doing, to be quite honest with you. Um, you know, uh, the standard gyms have their place. They have the equipment and the space, but which I don't have, but I appreciate. But what I found is I just like to be active, right? So whether that's uh, going on a bike ride, a long bike ride, or going for a run, or playing a game of touch football, pickup basketball with my kids, or something that I've been into actually for almost 10, 11 years now is yoga. uh, it helps early morning, or it gets the kinks out, you know but it also helps just relax me, um, uh, right before I set out on my day. um, so I just like being active. I really enjoy being outside, no matter what it is. If I could do it outside, I'd rather be doing it outside. But being open to new things, as my children get older, they've taken up skateboarding. I used to do that many many moons ago, so I dug out my skateboard and went skateboarding with them. Granted, it wasn't as fast as they were going, but you know, I think once you sort of realize that you're gonna fall at some point, you stop being scared about falling, right? It's gonna happen. So just don't worry about it. Enjoy the moment. Enjoy the time that you're having, just being out there in the fresh air, and you sort of give in to the, if it happens, then I'll get up and I'll be okay, right? So that's something I really sort of practice what I preach in that regard.
That's good. And I'll tell you, one of the easiest things that anybody can do, and I mean anybody, because obviously if you're getting up in the morning and you're going in and working on computers, or going to the office, or whatever it is you're doing, obviously you're walking in some form or fashion to get there. And if you go on a 20-minute walk, 20 minutes,
Mm.
that's all I'm saying. 20 minutes every day, you go on a walk around your neighborhood, and most people live in a neighborhood that they can do that, or if you want to go to the park or whatever. But the easiest thing to do is you walk right out of your house, you go do a route around your neighborhood, you come back home, and I'm telling you, 20 minutes will make you feel so much better once you start doing it on a consistent basis. Try it for 21 days and tell me after that 21st, 22nd day that you don't feel different. Because I'm telling you right now, doesn't matter what shape you're in right now, you will. Because walks always, they energize me. Yeah, at first they'll tire me out, but I always feel so much better. I breathe so much better. It really works to do some things in your body. And it's a natural thing that anybody can do. You don't need any weights. You don't need a gym membership. You don't need any of these things, but you can do it where you're at. And even if you, and my wife does this all the time, you can walk around the inside of your house if you live in a, northeastern type area where it gets kind of cold in the winter times. You can do that. The other thing is, this might be a little bit more dangerous depending on, what kind of shape you're in, but walking up and down the stairs.
Sure.
I mean, you want to get a cardiovascular workout, you ain't even got to go fast. You walk up and down your stairs 10 times. 10 times. And, the amount of, 16 steps that I have coming up to my second floor, I guess, I'm wore out. And so I know it's doing some good work there. So there are things that you can do to get your endorphins going and all these different things to make your days that much better. But anyway, so getting back to, we're talking about business balance. We're talking about how do we get to that point? So the third thing I really want to talk about is not to beat yourself up when you don't accomplish your goals. And I'm going to go back to what I was talking about before with to-do lists. I don't believe to-do lists actually work the way they're supposed to be intended to work. And that is, you fill a list up with things that you're going to check off. And the reason I say that it doesn't work is because that's one step of the process, in my opinion. And the reason I say that is because, number one, you want to get a to-do list together. I know this is kind of, it's counterintuitive. I know, I get it. Just bear with me. You want to get a to-do list together because what you need to do on a regular basis is you need a brain dump. You need to take everything that's you're thinking about that's coming in your brain, and you need to dump that on a piece of paper, no matter what it is. Something you want to accomplish in the future, something that needs to get done in the near future, something that needs to get done today. Whatever those things are, you need to get that out there. But what I would encourage people to do is take that to-do list once you've created it and you continue with this list, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Don't operate off of that. Take those to-do items and put them in your calendar. At this time, I am going to do this particular thing. And it might be called customer service for something, or it might be send an email, or it could be any of these things that is going to make your life better. And it might be stuff that has to be done, but go ahead and schedule it. So now you've brain dumped everything out of your brain on a consistent basis. So you're not keeping it around in your head, because once you brain dump it in it, you've got it on a piece of paper, you don't think about it as much. It's not on the forefront of your mind. It's not something you have to remember. Oh yeah, I was going to. How many times have you said that to yourself? I was going to, and I forgot. I was going to, and I didn't get to it. I was going to, and I ran out of time. These are common things that we say all the time. And that's because we really haven't set ourselves up for having some sort of balance. And so you've got to do some things that are going to make sense for you. And these are just my suggestions for what I do so that I can get a bunch of things off my plate. And like Eric said earlier, with hard stops, there are certain times, yes, I'm the same way, Eric, and it took me a long time to figure this out. My notifications on my phone, my ringer and all that stuff does not turn on until 9:50 in the morning. 9:50. And I'm up way before that. But I've got my time where I'm reading, I'm working out, I'm drinking my cup of coffee. I'm taking the time in the morning for myself to set myself up for the day. And here's the other thing too, is I would encourage people to try this. Take one thing that you need to get done on a daily basis or on a particular day. And that's what you want to do. You want to concentrate on that one thing. Here's what a lot of people do. A lot of people will set themselves with 3, 5, 10 things on a checklist that they're going to try to get done. And 99.9% of the time, they don't get them done. Or you waste a lot of time in between because your sole purpose is not concentrating on that one particular thing that you could do really, really well at that point, instead of understanding that there are 9 other things behind it. And what it does is it takes a lot of, even though this pressure is brought on by ourselves, and even though it's only perceived by us, it's still a pressure. and it's still pressuring you in your mind. And a lot of times pressure will just get you to overwhelm, and overwhelm will stop you in your tracks, and you get zero done. You get nothing done. And then the pile keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it always will. Like I said, that pile is going to ever increase. The whole thing with retirement, it's not ever going to decrease. You're going to understand as you get older, and when you get to retirement age, if you do retire, which I don't feel that most people do. Usually people go into a second or third career, but doing whatever. But you're going to find out that you're going to become busier than even when you were younger. And I don't know why it's that way, but that's just the way it is. And if you're not one of those individuals and you can prove me wrong, go ahead. But I've seen literally thousands of people that this is their life. This is what they do. And it's just the way life works. So looking at those things, I try to figure out how can I make myself so I get to the point where I'm not overwhelmed. And these are just some of the tips that I've worked on over time, and it's what works for me right now. Now that's not saying that I'm not going to change those things down the road, and maybe I need to make some altercations or some adjustments to how I do things that's going to work better for me. But for right now, that's what seems to be working.
Excellent.
So, Eric, what types of things do you do in order to keep yourself motivated to get things done?
Well, I I think I'm just comfortable with failure.
Ooh, that's
Uh,
good.
you know, I've had a lot of unplanned failures, so to speak. Right? I don't know if anybody plans to fail, but I mean, they say if you don't plan, you're planning to fail. But I've become comfortable with it, and I don't feel that it makes me a failure. I feel that I've taken that experience, and I feel like I'm in the game, so to speak, to use a sports metaphor. I'm in the game. I'm, I'm, I'm part of the action, right? It's You're not always going to hit on that first couple swings, to use another sports metaphor. But I'm comfortable with failure, in a professional sense. I enjoy the work that I do. I enjoy learning, but I don't feel that it defines me. I learned a lot of these lessons from a man named Jim Spina. Was a Owned an Italian coffee shop on Taylor Street in Chicago. He had a lot of these musings that he shared with me. Something like, "Hey, you know what? If this coffee shop fails, that's fine. I'll go do something else." Right? So he was somebody who was comfortable with failure. He knew he was devoting, 100% of his efforts to make successful. But if it didn't work, then fine, I'll do something else. He would say. Um, so, just being comfortable with failure, comfortable with change, I think is helped me in my career. You know, um, just being willing. I think something that my father told me was my one of my greatest strengths was my willingness to make a fool out of myself. So, you know,
That's
um,
good.
yeah. And he said it in all seriousness. Eric. One of your greatest strengths is you're willing to look foolish. Yeah, foolish for a purpose. Why not?
Exactly. I agree with you 100%. Oh, all right. So I want to so Eric, we're going to talk about a couple things. I want you to collect your lasting thoughts, and I'm going to read this comment here. But in anything that we haven't touched on that you feel that we need to touch on and let the audience know about, as far as getting their life balance working for them, we're going to go into that in a minute. But Robert E says, as mom told me, between age of 0 and 10, you do not know. Then you hit about 11 to 20, you think you know all things. Then about 20 and on, you know that you did not know what you thought you knew. it's it's so perfect as far as yeah. It's and you know what really brings to mind is that if you look at life, that's kind of how life is. You're constantly learning. And I love what you said about failures, because I think a lot of people are afraid to fail, and therefore there's a lot of things that they won't do. And you have to look at, as Eric has said, the failure is not a failure if you're learning from it. It's an
Mm.
education. So take that failure and look at it as, okay, I learned what I'm going to do differently, or I learned what I'm not going to do ever again. And either one of those things is fine, because you can reset and kind of move on in a direction that's going to work better for you, and you'll have a better understanding of what it is you want to do. So it's not a negative thing. Everybody looks at this stuff, man. There's people out there that have failed consistently during their lives. And I'm not going to go through the old history things that a lot of people have heard, but the reality is, if you look at anybody that's obtained anything worthwhile, whether it be money, fame, uh, you know, uh, helping other people, whatever it is, those people, they failed time and time and time again. They failed more than you would ever think about wanting to fail. And yet to them, it's just a way of life. It's okay to fail. It's okay to learn from your experiences. Now, hopefully, if you are listening to this content here, what we try to do is just bring some thoughts and things that people can think about, and hopefully help themselves in their life. And so that's what we kind of try to do here as far as bringing information. So if we can help you from failing some, that would be our intention. But here's the reality: a lot of times, the easiest way for most people to learn is to fail themselves, figure it out, and pass that information along to somebody else that hopefully will retain it and use it and be that much farther ahead than the person who had to go through the failure after failure after failure. All right, Eric. So we're getting to the end of the show here, but is there anything that we haven't covered as far as life balance, kind of thinking about how we need to think about things, how we need to pursue this in a way that's going to make sense for just living life in general till the day we're 6 feet under?
Well, I think, make self make time for yourself, and make time for those that care about you and that you care about, because you deserve it. Life is hard enough. You have to be uh, acceptant of you'll do everything right, and things still won't work out. So what does that tell you? Don't be that tough on yourself. You deserve that extra hour of sleep. You deserve that walk. You deserve that free time, because the reality is you're gonna fail more times than you win, and a lot of times you're gonna do everything right, and it's just not gonna work out. And once you realize that, I think it's gonna be freeing you to accept that balance, to say, the law of diminished returns, sort of, tie it back to your, moving in, and everything was done within 24 hours. I'll bet you that 22nd, 23rd hour weren't as productive as the very first few hours. So I tell my wife all the time, I say, you're I support you, and I'll handle things. You can stay up and work on what you got to work on. But, you'll notice 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m., you're not as fresh as a daisy as you were at like 8 p.m., right? So why not call it, get some sleep, and just wake up a little bit earlier, where you've had a chance to decompress? Because this is a marathon, as they say. It's not a sprint. There may be times where I need to sprint a mile, but it's still the marathon.
That's good. It's funny because uh, I was in a apprenticeship program over the last 4 years, and I had to go back to college, which I've never been to college in my entire life. So I went to college at 46, and I'm
Oh,
in class with would-be engineers and stuff like that are in their 20s, 18, 19, 20, 21, and also other people around my age, some older. And it was always funny because I would walk in these classes, and my whole my whole intent when you get older and you figure some things out, my whole intent on learning was to get as much information as I could get from the teacher, ask the questions I needed to ask to get the information that I needed that maybe wasn't in the textbook, and figure out how to do whatever it is I needed to do, whether it be math or drawing or CAD or whatever. And so going through these classes, one of the things I used to laugh all the time because these people would get so bent out of shape. They're like, they want A's, they want A's. And, I'm always the big smart aleck. And I said, listen, I said, you guys are missing the point, because a lot of them wanted a teacher that would spoon feed them. And I'm like, guys, this isn't high school. That's not what a college professor is for. College professor is there to give you the information that you need. You need to figure out the information you want so that you can ask them the questions if you don't understand how to do something. And they're more than happy to help you. And it works a lot better that way. And I said, a lot of times when you look at these professors, they're trying to get you to think for yourself, not just follow a program. Anybody can follow, any monkey can follow a program. Anybody can.
True.
It's easy, right? So you want to make sure that those people are getting the information that they can so that they can actually use it in a practical sense down the road. So these people will get all out, they're all out of shape. And I was always saying, hey, yeah, C's get degrees. I could care less. As long as I pass and a C passes me, I am perfectly fine for that. Now, I didn't get C's. Okay. But now here's a mindset you got to think about. My mindset was, as long as I pass and a C is passing, I'm perfectly fine with that. I got A's in every class except one, which is algebra, which I still hate, and I got a B plus in that. So, anyways, when I look at these things in how they work together, and just my mindset in my 40s compared to some of the 20-year-olds, they would get all bent out of shape. So I told these guys one time, I sat around and I said, listen, so I'm going to teach you a move that's going to make your life a whole lot easier. And it was basically just shrugging my shoulders. Shrug your shoulders, throw your hands in the air. It's okay. It'll all work out. So you just have to kind of take the pressure off yourself. Now, the people that were worried about, I got to get an A, I got to do everything perfect, they were so besides themselves all the time. They were so stressed and strained all the time. And they would sit here. All I did was I learned the material, I took the tests, and I did what I needed to do in order to pass. And so I learned the material, and I was able to pass with better than C's. But I didn't really care. I could have gotten all C's, and I would have been just as happy, because it doesn't matter to me. I just need to pass the class. So again, mindset is going to be the biggest thing in your life that you need to take away from thinking about things and making yourself better, and kind of thinking about how you got to balance that in. And I love the stuff we talked about today, Eric. I love the hard stop. You brought some, nuggets of information that really hopefully will resonate with people, and they'll take that stuff up and go, you know what? I'm going to do things a little bit differently. And just, do those hard stops, and, take the time away with family. I'm going to run hard, and then I'm going to take time. I'm going to run hard, and I'm going to take time. And then I'm going to take time, and then I'm going to run hard. And so you're going to constantly see this thing ebbing and flowing throughout life, and that's okay. And that's what it is. And the reality is, like I said in the beginning, a lot of goals that you have in your mind, you're not going to achieve. Be okay with that. But here's the thing. What I will tell you is the pursuing of that goal will still put you in a better position than you would if you didn't have a goal or something to shoot for anyways. But don't be disappointed if you don't get that goal. Just like I said before, I would have been perfectly happy with C's. It was no big deal. But because I was happy with C's, I got A's. Again, mindset. So just think about that from that standpoint, and hopefully that will help some people out there. Eric, I appreciate you coming out on a Sunday night, and it was great hearing your background story. It was great hearing the nuggets of information you have. If people want to get in contact with you, is there any way that they could do that?
Sure. As a public employee, I firmly believe giving out my information. So I don't know how I can get it to you, but I'm certainly reachable via LinkedIn. Eric Vazquez, Vazquez. Don't be afraid of the picture that pops up. That's just me. Have the city of Chicago flag behind me, and send me send me a message or a LinkedIn request, and I'm happy to uh, be a source of information for those that need it.
Excellent. And yeah, I'll get that link from you. We'll definitely get that in the show notes. So I appreciate you coming out tonight and sharing with us. And it was great having you.
Thank you, Jeff. It's been great to spend this time with you. I hope I didn't just lay nuggets. I hope I laid some bricks.
I love it. That's great. All right, come join us live every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can watch live or hang out in the chat room over on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and your favorite podcasting app to never miss an episode. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time on MSP Unplugged.